In honor of the United Nations 16 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence from November 25th to December 10th, 2M, Moroccan's national television service, broadcasted a makeup tutorial segment on its morning show, Sabah Hayats, according to Moroccan World News November 25th, 2016. The makeup tutorial consisted of teaching women how to cover up traces of violence in anticipation for the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. As the Moroccan World News furthers, the segment didn't cause outrage until it went viral online, forcing 2M to have to pull the segment from their website and release a statement saying the segment was completely inappropriate and actually promoted domestic violence. However, Lila Moulin, the makeup artist, is vehemently against this perspective, stating, "We are providing solutions for women who do not need people looking at them, not promoting domestic violence." With the latest United Nations statistics from 2015 showing 35.3% of women in Morocco will experience domestic violence in their lifetime, it is essential we understand how to best empower survivors by speaking out against abuse. This tool of makeup has been both criticized and revered, creating a dialectic tension between oppression and empowerment. Dialectic tensions refer to the contradicting ideologies found within a culture that influence societal norms. Studying how the aesthetic of makeup can influence a society leads us to our research question: is female empowerment achievable through aesthetic techniques? To answer, we'll examine the dialectic tensions found within domestic violence as addressed by Adrian Kunkel and Jennifer Guthrie in their 2016 Western Journal of Communication article titled "Survivor: Women's Stories of Navigation and Tensions in Domestic Violence Shelter," then apply it to Sabah Hayat's segment before finally drawing critical implications. Kunkel and Guthrie found several tensions while working at the domestic violence shelter that's purpose was to empower survivors. Two tensions in particular are seen as complementary and lend themselves to female empowerment: independence versus dependence, and narrative accuracy versus narrative efficacy. First, Kunkel and Guthrie outlined the first tension, independence versus dependence, as a complementary dialectic. The women defined empowerment as being in charge of their own lives and taking care of themselves. Thus, independence becomes synonymous with self-reliance and emancipation from their abuser or an abusive environment. Dependence was defined as a reliance on others to achieve eventual freedom. However, prolonged dependence would hinder eventual independence. This flux shows the two poles form a complementary dialectic. Second, narrative accuracy versus narrative efficacy is defined as the women telling their true, complete, lived experiences. Accuracy, but withholding certain details, efficacy, to receive assets from the shelter, being housing, counseling, and even safety. This can be empowering due to women receiving adequate care, but disempowering for emotional healing. As the model points out, they're essentially telling survivors, tell us your true story, but do it our way. This shows the two poles form a complementary dialectic wherein accuracy leads to efficacy, but only if one's true lived experiences match up to the criteria for obtaining resources. Now that we understand Kunkel and Guthrie's model, we can apply it to the controversial Sabah Hayat segment. First, independence versus dependence. The Washington Post, November 25th, 2016, highlights an interview with the makeup expert, Lila Moulin, stating, "Makeup allows women to continue to live their lives normally while waiting for justice." This lends itself to independence rather than dependence in Kunkel and Guthrie's first tension. One commenter, in response to the segment, posted on November 23rd, 2016, states, "To me, they're not telling women to cover up and be ashamed, but that they should be able to live their lives without the inevitable questions, speculation, and judgment from their peers." Based on the show's original intention, dependence on makeup, if not prolonged, allows women to confidently speak out about their experiences without having to worry about their appearance, and reinforces independence of the survivor to feel empowered to go out on their own. thus fulfilling both poles of our complementary dialectic, independence versus dependence, to enhance female empowerment. Second, in the case of narrative accuracy versus narrative efficacy, the makeup impedes on the accuracy of the women's statements. As Human Rights Watch August 26, 2016 explains, they're essentially telling women to cover up rather than speak out. While makeup doesn't convolute the validity of their stories, it eliminates proof of abuse. This gives listeners little to no distractions, but essentially hides the real ugly truth these women are living. Newsweek, March 20th, 2016 explains that in places like Morocco, where domestic violence is not a crime, proof of abuse is essentially women's only cry for help against their abuser. This cover-up hinders female empowerment as it hides the real abuse story. Now that we've applied our model to Sabah Hayat's segment, we can answer our research question. Is female empowerment achievable through aesthetic techniques? The answer is not yet. The makeup impedes on the accuracy of the women's statements, essentially hindering female empowerment. However, due to the oppressive nature of the system in Morocco, the 2M segment is a bold first step for Moroccan domestic violence culture, leading us to two vital implications: denial of authenticity and the need for culturally distinct response. First, using makeup as a tool to cover up violence, as promoted by the 2M segment, hinders the accuracy of the women's statements, essentially prolonging public acceptance of narrative authenticity. One survivor, Christy, explains to Kunkel and Guthrie her frustration with her interview for the shelter and the extent that survivors have to go to be admitted. She states, "I said, well, what do I have to say? Do I have to be really beaten up?" As the model furthers, female empowerment requires authenticity of self, or else survivors find themselves stuck between tensions that are never relieved, and a sense of false empowerment results. In short, women who cover up traces of violence cannot truly be free. Simultaneously, it furthers the age-old abuse narrative: I have something of which to be ashamed. Second, when considering how to best empower survivors, culture needs to be considered. While makeup isn't a tool of empowerment in itself, it is a step for Moroccan domestic violence culture. One commenter, in response to The Guardian November 27, 2016, argues they are not telling women to cover up their abuse, and anyone who says they should go out in public displaying their abuse is an idiot. However, due to Moroccan rhetoric surrounding a female, she is seen as a product, and street harassment is a cultural norm, explains Moroccan World News April 3, 2016. The Human Rights Watch February 22, 2016's research highlights 20 interviews with domestic violence survivors in Morocco. One survivor, Jahan, 18 years old, was told multiple times by police that they were incapable to help her, and was even told by her father, "Stay with him, even if he kills you." The 2M segment was not using makeup as a tool to empower, but rather to keep victims alive. While makeup in itself isn't empowering, it is a step for Moroccan domestic violence culture, and it saves lives. After understanding our model, applying it to Sabah Hayat's segment, and deconstructing some vital implications, it's clear that makeup can be used as a tool to empower survivors, but only once they are out of the toxic cycle of abuse and can go out on their own. This shows that aesthetic techniques solely can achieve female empowerment, while makeup further perpetuates a toxic cycle of silence. Within Morocco, this cover-up provides a little light for women who are silenced.